Good morning and welcome to Garden with Peggy. See, I got it right that time. It was the garden show for 35 years, but Garden with Peggy is what the website is and how to get to the show on YouTube and Facebook. So for consistency purposes, we are now Garden with Peggy. And I want to remind everybody to please click on like and subscribe and the number to call if you have questions, 888-399-7344, and that you can send me all kinds of stuff via the website, and you can send me pictures and I will be happy to put them on and we can talk about them on the air where everybody can see them. You can give me a call. I will tell you when I have them ready and you can give me a call and we can chat about them. Which reminds me, Sharon from Winfield, is that what that says? Winfield, is sent me a picture of her Christmas cactus. So if she would like to give us a call, we could chat about that. And again, the number 888-399-7344. That's Peggy, Pegi 7344. So if you would like to call, that would be great. I have a few fun things to share with you. I also have this little guy, Alfie. He's being relatively calm at the moment, but we can't count on that. Oh, there he goes. Shouldn't have said anything. Now he's starting to wiggle. But it's been an interesting week, let me tell you. So a lot of stuff happened, and I will share some of that with you. But again, if you would like to call, now would be the time. 888-399-7344. Okay, you're wiggling? No? Yes? Okay, so I think the first thing we should do is this week at Tiny Farm. So that was last Sunday. This picture that we're looking at here was last Sunday. And I just wanted to point out that he is not always a wiggle worm. In the middle of the show last week, he jumped on my lap and then onto the table and fell asleep. And he did most of the show with me. You couldn't see him because he was below the camera level, but he pretty much laid there the whole time. So he is good company. Well, especially when he's not being a crazy puppy. I did spend a fair amount of time in the compost pile, which I have mentioned, and now is the time to do that because you want to be able to have access to the compost. And the way I build my compost pile is at the bottom of the screen is pretty much up against the fence, chain link fence. You don't want to put a compost pile up against a wooden fence. Just want to throw that in there because it'll help the wooden fence to decompose. So you don't want to do that. But it has my chain link fence has a cinder block base and then as a chain link fence. It works out pretty well. But I just continue to add and make it longer and longer and longer. It's called a windrow. In commercial production of compost, the windrows can be like 6 feet high. In an ideal situation, you don't want them any smaller than 4 feet because that's how big they have to be in order to retain enough heat to decompose. Mine start out pretty close to 4 feet, but as they decompose, of course, they shrink. So what we're looking at here is the oldest part of the pile and the most decomposed. And what I was doing that day was raking out all the non-decomposed material. Mostly use a pitchfork for that and a rake, and then throw it in a big bucket or the wheelbarrow, and then take it down. The stuff that's not decomposed, I take it back down all the way to the other end. And you can see this is mostly cleaned out, not 100% cleaned out, but mostly cleaned out. And you can see that there is a significant amount of decomposed organic matter there ready. Now, I don't put just leaves. I put everything on the pile, which is why there's so much woody material that's still in there. But when I throw dead plants and there's soil on the bottom, and by the time I'm done and there's straw, by the time I'm ready to use it, it's usually a pretty good mix of partially decomposed or mostly decomposed organic matter that gives it a little substance, and the soil from the plants and a little bit of sand always ends up getting mixed in because when I pull stuff out of the ground, my soil is very sandy. So that's where I was working towards to be able to use that. And that's the finished product, which is pretty good. And I had that amount in my wheelbarrow was just enough to fill those 3 buckets. And that's where I planted my tomato plants, which I will show you next week because they were out for a while. Then they came in because the weather got cold. But I'll show you more about how they're doing next week. And this is update on the cherry tree. I try to work on it a little bit every day. What you're looking at currently is somewhere in the realm of about 200 flowers. And I think I'm about 25% done. So I think I'm going to need somewhere between 800 and 1,000 more flowers, but maybe more, because it does get wider at the top. It gets a lot wider at the top, but height wise, I'm probably close to halfway up the length of the trunk. So, but we're progressing slow, a little bit every week. And I just have to show you this picture. I was sitting in the parking lot at ShopRite. I'd just done a pretty significant grocery shopping, and there was this dead tree across in the woods, across from the parking lot, staring at me. And I just, I just thought it was, I don't know. I thought it was the cutest thing. I couldn't decide if he looked more like the Grinch or maybe some kind of wild animal, because you could see ears and the eyes, but had kind of a snouty thing. But I thought it was cute, and sometimes you get to see things in winter that you don't get to see any other time of the year. So I think, is that the last one? Okay. So let's go back to me. And again, I will give the phone number, which is 888. And what's the rest of the phone number? Because it's covered. My phone number is covered by something. So, 888-399-7344. That's Peggy, Pegi, 7344. And would love to hear from Sharon. But would also love to hear from Nancy, who went to the Philadelphia Flower Show and sent me great pictures. And that's still going on this week. So if you are tempted to go, probably less busy during the week. I think it runs to the 10th. So Nancy, if you would like to call, and then we can share your pictures together with our listening audience, that would be great, or our viewing audience, I should say. So let's do the seed order. This is, I meant to actually show you this last week, but we ran out of time. And I always have extra slideshows to make sure. But I did order a bunch more seeds. I haven't started, other than the tomato plants that I want to grow, those weird tomato plants, the BHN 589 or whatever the number is. Other than those, I haven't started any seeds yet. I may start the end of this week. I may start some seeds. So this is a really cool catalog. Shumways has been around for a pretty long time, and I love the artwork. And they have, each catalog, each company has its seeds that you can't find anyplace else. They also, there's a tremendous amount of overlap, but I like to look at lots of different catalogs. And this is one where I've always found a few interesting things. I ordered that banana melon. It's supposed to be a musk melon, which is something like a cantaloupe, but it looks and tastes like a banana. Well, I figured, why not? Let's give it a try. And in that case, they only had drawings. They didn't have pictures. So it's supposed to be kind of like a yellow when it's mature, like a banana. And I try to grow one melon a year, so I thought maybe this would be the one that I would try this year. Now, I had already ordered orange okra, but I just love this rainbow fiesta okra, which is a mix of all different varieties, which I think is fun. I think the red ones kind of turn green when you cook them anyway, but okra is one of my favorite things to grow, one of my favorite things to eat out of the garden. The problem with growing okra is it's a pretty long season crop, and it really likes heat. So that's why it doesn't get going until the weather gets hot. But it also has beautiful flowers. And once it starts producing, you have to harvest every day because the pods grow quickly. And although newer varieties are a little bit more flexible in terms of the size of harvesting them, they stay tender a little bit longer. You want to keep them in the 2 to 3 inch range for really good tender okra. On the other hand, if you decide to stop harvesting them, the pods are very fun and cool and can be used as, in dried flower arrangements, and they're kind of magnificent. So when you've had enough okra, you can leave the last few on there to completely dry on the plant and harvest them for ornamental purposes. Summer squash. Of course, everybody loves a good zucchini on the grill. I mean, but they're also, not the most exciting thing. So I thought I would try this this white patty pan scallop squash. I thought again, once again, it's a little bit unique, and I had never seen a white one advertised before. I've seen yellow ones, and of course, the green ones tend to be very pale green. And I have used the patty pans to make a pumpkin pie once. It wasn't a pumpkin pie; it was a patty pan pie, but they're supposed to be usable as a substitute, and it was quite tasty. And the moonflower vine, been trying to grow that every year. Last year, among other things that did not produce a lot of flowers, the moonflower vine did not do great last year. Maybe other people's did, but mine did not. And so I'm kind of looking forward to growing them again this year, because 2 years ago when I grew them, they were really magnificent. Okay, so that was it for Shumway. And then the Select Seeds, again, another company that's been around for a pretty long time. Maybe not as long as some have been around for a couple hundred years. This one since 1987. And I'd never seen this before. This is why I like to look at different catalogs. This is just a weird looking thing. And I decided that I really wanted to try to grow it. So I will definitely be starting some seeds. It's a kind of phlox. This one's called Midnight Candy, night phlox. And it's another night bloomer like the moonflower vine. It's supposed to have a really nice scent, like vanilla and marzipan and honey. I just thought it was really interesting. And it's done well when it's grown in it. Very suitable for container culture. So I don't know, maybe I will try to grow them in some nice containers. I have some window boxes that I like to grow things in. Maybe I'll put it there. But I definitely want to try them because I've never seen them before. And of course, that always tickles my fancy. So, all right, this beauty, again, just gorgeous colors and kind of variegated. And very, very pretty. And it's a kind of cosmos. And cosmos are known for their ability to self-sow and come back for years. I don't know if this fancy variety will do that. It might be a hybrid. And if that's the case, then what comes up in following years may not be exactly the same. But it's purple. You know how pretty that's going to look in front of my house. So I have a spot where I'm just going to throw all the seed, and I'm going to direct seed it into the ground and then mulch on top of it and see what it does. So that one I'm not going to start indoors. All right. I'm always looking for interesting vines, and I like the foliage on this one as well as the bright yellow flowers. And it's an heirloom variety. And again, I've never seen this one before. So I thought it would be worth a try. And it's originally from Peru and was introduced to England in 1755. So we'll see. I'll get it started. I might try to start this one indoors and see how it does. I have a trellis that I like to grow a different vine on every year. Gurneys, again, they've been around a long time. 1866 is a pretty long time. And 150 years, is that about 150 years? A little more than that. But they always have some interesting things. They do more vegetables than flowers, but okay, so this is ridiculous. Do you see the price on these? Hybrid tomatoes, Buffalo Sun hybrid tomato. A packet of 10 seeds is $9.99. But then after I bought them, when I went back to gather the pictures to do this, they said it was on sale for $8.99. But with shipping, I don't know, it was like more than $1 a seed. So those are very expensive tomato seeds. I will start them. And if people are interested, I will start all 10 seeds. I'm only going to want like 2 or 3 for me. So I will be happy to share the rest come the plant exchange. Oh, we've picked the date for the plant exchange, right? It's the Saturday before Memorial Day. What's the date? Is that, what did we say, the 20? Tommy will look it up, but I think it's the 25th. That's definitely the date. The 25th, May 25th. So you might want to put that on your calendars. Again, people that want to come and help know how to reach me. I can always use the help. It's a big job. And the whole thing with the plant exchange is everybody brings something to eat to share, preferably finger food that's easy for people to just pick up and grab. I think I've done hot dogs a few years in a row. I think I've done hot dogs, which is easy. You know, you do the hot dogs, you put them in a bun, you leave the ketchup and the mustard out, and people can grab a hot dog. Pretty easy for me because I'm really very busy that day. But there's, you know, people bring cookies. 2 years ago, people brought so many cookies that there wasn't anything else to eat but cookies and hot dogs, pretty much. But, one of my viewers brought these really cool rice balls, and they were really good. So I'm asking not for everybody to not bring cookies. On the other hand, lemon bites, which became famous because I could not find them after I got them 2 years ago. I couldn't find them anywhere. They had completely disappeared. Apparently they come from Costco, which I'm not a member of, but I had friends take me and they disappeared. And then last year, a whole bunch of people, not for the plant exchange, but afterwards gave me lemon bites. And let me tell you, we enjoyed every single one of them. And we put them in the freezer and they froze fantastic. And we finished the last ones about 3 weeks ago, and they were just as good out of the freezer as they were fresh. And that doesn't happen very often, but they were really, really yummy. Okay, next. Okay, I've been growing potatoes. I really like to grow potatoes, but I thought I have been growing Yukon Golds, but we've decided to try to grow some purple potatoes this year. And I also ordered another really nice lettuce mix. I like to have several packs of lettuce mix seeds because you can start them at different times, and I like to have them around because I like to start them in the fall again as well. So I think I got lettuce mix from somebody else, but I'll you know, compare and see which ones I like best. Is that the end of my seeds? So I'm done ordering seeds. Of course, I did order a couple of weird things. I did order the Hairy Balls milkweed, and those seeds arrived. So I'm excited. I will start those indoors. So a lot of seeds starting in the immediate future. I was hoping to get my cherry tree done before it was time to start seeds, but then COVID kind of made that a little bit more difficult. I kind of lost like 2 weeks of the end of winter cherry tree painting time. So I'm not done, but I'll still try to work on it a little bit every day. And but it's time. By the end of this week, I'm gonna start some seeds, probably peppers and eggplants to get going, and maybe some flowers. The peppers and eggplants take a long time. They take so much longer than the tomatoes, so I'm probably going to get going with them, and then I'll go through everything and come up with a plan. Definitely come up with a plan. All right, so let me give the phone number again. I wondered, can Nancy, are you listening? Can you give us a call? Sometimes Nancy's around and sometimes she's not. She has a very wonderfully busy life. So I know she went to the Philadelphia Flower Show because she sent me all those pictures, but I don't know if she's actually around today to share it with us. So again, the number is 888-399-7344. That's Peggy, Pegi, 888-399-7344. Okay, should we do the farm at Green Village?
Or you got the propagation of the next thing?
No, we'll save that one for next. Let's do the farm at Green Village. Yes, that's up in Chatham. And Chris from Scotch Plains told me about this place. And in the fall, I went up there, met my brother, who we call Uncle Matt for the kids. And we spent some time there, and it was lovely. And I picked up some things. The place was really beautiful. And then Chris told me that they were having a sale. And I thought he said it was to the 3rd, which is today. When we actually got there, which was Friday, which was the 1st, they told me that the sale was over the last day of February, the 29th. And I was like, oh, I said I came up here. But they were very nice, and they gave me the sale price of 40% off anyway. So I have to be grateful for that. So we looked at a lot of things. Well, unfortunately, I have to replace my Harry Lauder's walking stick. It got a borer, and I was talking to them, and they said that they have seen that before. The branches of my Harry Lauder looked like a flute. There were so many holes in them. It was a little bit depressing. And I lost about half of it at the beginning of last year when I was cleaning up the bed and pruning things. I lost about half of it. And then over the summer, additional branches were dying. And I don't know if it's completely dead, but it's not coming back from the condition it's in. And because of the borers, I can't put another Harry in that same spot. So I was looking for something else. Now this is Bob, picture of Bob, and he was very helpful, and he was taking me around and showing me all the cool things. And this is what we decided on. And it was $450, but they gave me 40% off. So that was good. And it is a weeping pink styrax, or snowbell, pink snowbell. And I'm very excited because it has a nice shape. The root ball is a little too big for me to manage on my own. There's no way. Tommy's going to have to help me with this one, especially because I have to dig out the Harry. So it's a two-person job. We'll maybe do that next weekend. Doesn't have to be done today. So we'll maybe do that next weekend. And they loaded it up and put it in the truck for me. But I have to tell you that it was quite the adventure getting there. I was supposed to take Uncle Matt out for lunch for his birthday. And so and Tommy and I talked about, well, should I take the truck or should I take my car, which is a Chevy HHR. And it has a pretty big back when you fold all the seats down. And I was a little worried because I wasn't sure if I was going to buy an evergreen, because I was just looking for something interesting. And so we decided that probably, it would be better to take the car because, we didn't want the truck to expose any evergreen plant or any plant to that much wind on the way home, because it's a long, it's over an hour ride home. And so we decided to take the truck. We decided to take the car, and I left the truck home. So I'm driving up there to this wonderful nursery, and I got stuck in traffic on the parkway, and when really stop and go. And then as the traffic cleared up, I started to try to accelerate, and the car would not accelerate. I got it up to 60 miles an hour, but only with the RPMs like going crazy loud roaring. And eventually it kind of calmed down a little bit. I couldn't get it to go over 60 miles an hour. And then I got off the highway and stopped at a light, and it wouldn't go. So I was stuck in the middle of a 3-lane intersection, 3 lanes in both directions. I was dead in the middle of the road in my car, not moving. So I put it in first gear and I floored it, and you could smell burning something, but I got it to move like another 10 feet or 15 feet, just enough to get it out of the intersection. So the car had to be towed. Uncle Matt had to come and get me, and then we went out to lunch. The police were very nice. They called the tow truck. Luckily, I was facing the sign that said "Welcome to Morris," he was in Morristown, and so we took the truck. We took the car to my brother's guy that does car repair. So at least it's with somebody that I trust. But then Tommy had to drive up, and we brought the tree home in the back of the truck anyway. So the whole day was a bit of a disaster, but I had great fun with Uncle Matt, and I really loved being at this nursery. Now, what we're looking at here is a hydrangea. This is a limelight hydrangea that's grown on a standard, which means that it's been grafted onto like a tree trunk. And that's not real common. Usually they grow more bush-like. But you can see the picture on the right, you can see the close-up of the on the tag of the flowers. So limelight is very popular. So I thought that was kind of fun. It was a little different presentation with it being grafted on a standard like that. And these are snow fountain cherry trees. which are kind of a weeping cherry tree, but there's 4 of them in this archway. And to see the structure, the way it's been bent and twisted and pruned and shaped, you wouldn't even see any of this if it had leaves and flowers on it. So I thought it's really wonderful how they created such winter interest. But this is a, definitely labor intensive kind of a project, because these are big, good sized cherry trees. And to have them sculpted like that needs constant, every annual attention to keep it in that beautiful arch. And on the left here, with the beautiful view of the lake, is a weeping Norway spruce. And again, all the weeping evergreens are wonderful for winter interest. And then on the right is a yellow twig dogwood. Now, there were some brown branches. And the thing about the yellow twig and the red twig dogwoods, in order to keep the plant mostly yellow, it's only or red, it's only really the new growth that maintains that color. So again, if you want to keep it mostly yellow or red, in either case, you have to do a lot of pruning and generate a lot of new growth and get rid of the old growth, because that will just turn brown like, any other kind of woody ornamental. So, and I have thought a couple of times, maybe I should have gotten this Angel Falls white pine instead. It's always a tough decision. This is a white pine, but if you look at the tag, it's only 7 feet tall by 3 feet wide in 10 years. So compared to how other white pines grow, that is very small, because white pines are one of the faster evergreens that grow around here. And they're very pretty. And I wonder, maybe I should have gotten that instead. But, I made a decision. I'm going to stick with it. And it's, but now I'm maybe going to have to find another spot for one of these someday. And spring is definitely sprung. Look at all those pansies. Pansies make me happy. You can't have too many pansies. But the problem with planting a tremendous number of pansies in the spring is that by the middle of the summer, they look kind of awful. And then they need to be replaced. And you don't want to necessarily pull them out in time to get an early start on your summer annuals. So that's the dilemma. They're wonderful at this time of year, and they're wonderful throughout early spring, but they kind of give up the ghost. Now, the thing that's really interesting about pansies is really the best time to plant them is September, October, because then they will overwinter and they'll have a better established root system, and then they will last longer. But at some point, generally speaking, in the middle of the summer, they need to be replaced. But if you want some signs of spring, go get yourself some pansies. And we've talked about pussy willows, and many, many times we've talked about pussy willows. And I have several different kinds. I have a weeping pussy willow. I have the fantail pussy willow, which is the one on the right here. And I wanted to show you this because we've talked about it. It's called Sekko, Sekko, fantail pussy willow or fantail willow. And this is what happens to the branches. You can see that they grow very flat and fan-like. And these are not the best example of the best fantail pussy willow branches, because sometimes that fan-like flat growth is covered in fuzzy catkins, which makes them even more interesting. These do not appear to have a lot of catkins on them, but they can. But you can see, if you look on the far right, there's one that's really, shepherd hooky like, and they're all twisted, and they're just fun and hard to go wrong with these. They last forever in dried arrangements, and it's also hard to tell how fresh these are. I don't know if you could just buy a stick. They root very easily in general, but I don't know how dried these were. I didn't pull any out, take a closer look, but this is what I've been talking about for a few years. We have one planted up against the chimney. These are other wonderful spring flowering things that they had. It's a kind of primrose on the left. It looks like a double. They're really beautiful. I've never seen primroses quite that robust before. They come in lots of different colors. This was the only doubles that I saw there. There may have been others that were not quite in bloom yet, but I thought these were magnificent. And on the right, we have English daisies, and that's a perennial. And these are more English daisies. They all look a little different. The ones on the right are enormous. They're twice the size of the other ones, which I thought was kind of spectacular. They don't, and they're all, you know, a little different. Some you can see the centers on, some you can't. The pink ones, harder to see the centers, but again, another lovely spring flowering plant that's a little bit as an alternative to pansies. This is one I'm not really familiar with, but it is a perennial. It's a saxifrage, mossy saxifrage, and I like the color. I thought the color was really nice, and I like the, you know, the simple loopy flower look. Sort of looks a lot like the flowers I've been painting for the cherry tree. Hellebores. My brother, who was with me while we were there, was unfamiliar with the hellebores. And he got all excited when he saw them. And of course, the original hellebore that was popular was the Christmas rose, which is Helleborus nigra. And that's the one that's supposed to bloom at Christmas. And it's usually white or very close to it, kind of an ivory color. And then the next one that blooms is the Lenten rose, which is Helleborus orientalis. And then there's another one that blooms, can't say if it blooms before or after the Lenten rose, but it's called Helleborus foetidus, which the awful name of the stinking hellebore. And the flowers are green and small, but they come in big clusters. And I really like it. I had it at Blooming Acres, and I really enjoyed having it. And one of the nice things about these is they are blooming now. Mine are blooming outside here at Tiny Farm, and they hold on to their foliage. It gets pretty beat up, and by spring it looks pretty ugly, but it does hold on to its foliage during the winter, and then it blooms. And what we're actually looking at are bracts rather than the actual flowers, sort of like poinsettias. The red part or the pink part is considered a bract, and the flowers, the little yellow knobby things in the center. Well, we're looking at the same thing. What we're looking at here is bracts. And again, because we're looking at bracts as opposed to just flowers, the bracts surround the flowers. The flowers last a very long time, or the bracts last a very long time. And they are very shade tolerant. So they have some advantages. They flower at a time of year when not much else is flowering. They are hardy, and they are very shade tolerant. So all advantages. Most of the ones that are out now are hybrids. There was more color in the Lenten roses, and so they were bred with the Christmas roses. And that's how they have established so many different varieties with color by doing a breeding program. And orchids. I have 3 orchids blooming or about to bloom. 2 are covered in flower buds right now, and 1 is in bloom. A white one, like the one on the top I have, is in bloom. And then I have 2 others about to pop. But orchids are fun, and the plants are not all that exciting to look at when they're not in bloom, but you kind of just mix them in with your other house plants, and you don't really have to notice that the plants aren't all that exciting. And then when they bloom, they come into their glory. And there are some that are more difficult to grow. I have my monkey orchid, and it's doing well under its dome. And it's a cloche or bell jar, whatever we want to call it. It's doing quite well under there. No signs of flowers, and might not be any signs of flowers for a couple of years, but it is doing well. And as I said, I have 2 others that are covered in flower buds. So I will show you them as soon as they pop. This is a zebra plant, and I love the foliage on this. These are not your easiest house plants to grow. They're very fussy. I would say that they're kind of medium to difficult, because once they drop their leaves, you're kind of done. And they're a little particular, but they are lovely. And these are Dieffenbachias, also called dumb canes. And the reason they're called dumb canes is that they exude a white substance when they're cut or damaged. And that material will cause you to lose your ability to speak. It'll make your throat swell up. So I thought it would only be if you ingested it. So I never really paid much attention. But many, many years ago, I had one that had gotten very tall and very leggy. And it's interesting because you can cut the stalk into pieces, like as long as there's a couple leaf nodes on the piece, and then you can root them. Like, so if you're cutting the long stalk off, you can root the top. You can leave the trunk in the pot and that'll resprout. And then you can cut the stalk in several pieces, let them dry a little bit, and then root them. And that's what I did. But of course, they were oozing white stuff, and I wasn't wearing gloves. And when I was done, I had a really bad sore throat. So I don't know if just breathing around it or touching it with my bare hands, but whatever the ability of this plant is to make your to irritate your throat, it's very real, and you should probably wear a mask and gloves when you're handling, if you're propagating it in any way. Just to move it around is not, it's not a problem. But the one time that I did cut it up in pieces and had all the white goo oozing all over the place, I did get affected by it. But they are beautiful house plants. There's many, many varieties. They're, again, pretty tolerant of lower light conditions in the home. And they make great house plants. And this is just a really nice selection of all the different varieties. Anthuriums, my favorite alternative to roses for Valentine's Day, because of the heart-shaped flowers and the fact that they are a very waxy flower and they last a very long time. And it's a plant, as opposed to most people getting cut roses, and it can live to bloom another day. There's a lot of different kinds of anthuriums, but this happy red one is one of my favorites. And these are colocaceas, or elephant ears, and they come in so many different varieties. The big plain green ones can get enormous. Supposedly all of these can too. They are a bit more particular. I have some of the plain ones growing in pots, but I can tell you that when I initially potted up those pots, I put in several different kinds. And over the years, it's only the plain giant green ones that have survived. So they are hardier. But if you grow these by themselves and tend them carefully, they are all pretty spectacular. This is a rubber tree plant, which is a kind of ficus, and a variegated form. It has those nice red new growth, and then the speckled foliage. These are pretty classic house plants, but they're usually all green, and they can get quite large. And again, you can do the same thing as I mentioned with the dumb cane, the Dieffenbachia, that if it gets really tall, you can root the middle sections. You can cut it off at the top, leave the base to resprout, root the top, and then root some of the pieces in the middle. One time I just cut it way back, and I just took the stalk that was in the middle, shoved it in around the pot, and they all sprouted. So not easy, not difficult to propagate if you choose to do so. And there's, again, a bunch of different kinds, but this one was sort of unique. String of pearls, but this one's variegated. I really liked it. I thought it was really pretty. A nice little succulent. I have the plain green one. I did not pick up another one, only because I have no room in the greenhouse for any more houseplants. So, who we got on the line?
Teacher.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's hold off on this. And my son is calling. So is he ready? Good morning, TJ. How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm okay, but we got to get your volume up. I can barely hear him.
Well, can you hear me now? I don't know if it's the volume
Yep,
or me.
I got you.
I'm
Okay, much better. Much better. So
fighting the onset of bronchitis or something. So
that's not good. That's not good at all.
It happens like once a year. So
what are you up to today? What do I owe the lovely surprise of this phone call?
Well, the sun is shining and it's warm out, and I was in the backyard picking up after the dogs and just getting some things organized, and I noticed that I had shoots of daffodils coming up and these little white flowers that might be something close to a crocus or like a mini lily, and I wanted to know if things are going to be ahead of schedule again this year, and if people should start to panic, or if we should just all kind of take it easy and just keep doing what we're doing as far as getting ready for spring garden beds.
Well, everything is definitely ahead of schedule. The fact that daffodils are up is not that big of a surprise. The fact that they've been up in some places for 2 or 3 weeks is a little bit more surprising. The little white flowers, if I had to make a guess, I would say are snowdrops. They
probably,
and I love them, and they're one of the early bloomers, and they bloom probably just a hair ahead of crocuses. I don't know if you remember, but in the basement at Blooming Acres, we had that huge window, and outside it was terraced, and in there was a bunch of snowdrops that used to bloom in January because the window well acted as a heat sink, and it faced south, so it would get very, very warm, and they would often bloom in January. So I would always look forward to seeing them. And so they are one of their, so the fact that those are blooming is not really a big surprise. So yeah, I think some things have already been damaged because they were leafing out early, and then we did get a bit of a cold snap. I think some of the foliage on my butterfly bushes got damaged because that had come out really early, and then it got cold. Just the foliage just got like a little crispy around the edges. I think they'll be fine because they're pretty tough, but I don't know about panicking, but it's definitely time to start paying attention to what's going on outside. One of the things, we need to hire a new mowing man, which we probably need to do right away because the old mowing man is not mowing anymore. Yeah, there's, a lot of things that need to be done. Pruning your fruit trees, you should definitely get that done right away. If you wanted to do, it's probably already late to do any kind of frost seeding. I'm not sure if the ground is going to freeze and thaw anymore, so it's probably too late to do any of that for lawn care. If you wanted to put down a pre-emergence, you usually do that when the forsythia is in bloom, which is not yet, but if you're planning on doing that, you should probably make sure you have everything on hand because it's probably going to be a little bit early. All your perennials need to be cut back because the new growth is going to start popping up. That's one of the things on my schedule for this week. I have all those beautiful hibiscus that are behind me. I left intact with the seed pods on because they're kind of provide winter interest, but I've got to get in there and cut all that way back so that there's room for the new growth to come up. So yeah, there's plenty of things to do. It's spring. Spring has sprung, and the work, it's time to get working. No doubt about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny actually. I'm looking out the kitchen window now, and I did just notice the guy dumped another humongous load of wood chips. So I don't know if you guys needed a load of wood chips again this spring, but
I could definitely use a load of wood chips this spring. Definitely could use a load of wood chips. Maybe the next
couple of weeks I can get you I'll borrow the dump trailer and bring you guys a nice big heavy load of wood chips. And they're nice and clean too. Depending what type of tree you put in the wood chipper and what type of wood chipper depends on the quality of chip. And excuse me, a lot of people don't really notice that stuff, but you and I who are familiar with the industry understand that,
Well, I'm going to tell you that
like a mulch.
When we first bought Tiny Farm and we took down all those trees, the guys that took down all the trees did a great job. And but they kept taking the wood chips to the dump. And I kept saying, I need a load of chips, please. Don't take them all. Leave me a big load of chips. And they took and they had a great chipper. So the chips were really nice. And they took them and they said, we'll save you the last load. I was like, okay. And then I went out and they were finishing up and leaving, and they had taken the last load away. And I said, where's my wood chips? And they said, oh, we forgot. And they said, I promise you, we'll bring you a load of wood chips. That was 5 years ago. I never got any wood chips from them. It was very, very, very disappointing. They never came back. They never brought me any wood chips. And it was so ridiculous because they had to pay to dump them. So why would they have to?
When they could have just staged them out there.
Right. It was ridiculous. So I never got my own wood chips. I never got them from my trees. I never got them from their trees. I never got any wood chips. It was really very, very frustrating. But, we've been buying bagged wood mulch, and it gets expensive to buy it by the bag. And wood chips work great. So, I like the mulch. There's the advantage of buying it by the bag is I can drag the bags around and empty them, and your father will often take the bags and place them where I need them. So then all I have to do is slice them open and dump them. And that works out pretty good. But it gets pricey, and it's a lot of trips over to where we have to make the purchase. So if you could bring me a load, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, either I could bring a load, or maybe we could schedule it where you guys can bring your pickups empty, and we could just load it right in the pickups empty. And you got a couple days. That way you could drive the truck around the yard, whatever you guys.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. That's definitely we're down a vehicle though. I don't know. Did you tune in early to the show, or did you just call in now?
I just called in now. I was in the middle of finishing up some outside stuff.
I went to take Uncle Matt out to lunch for his birthday, and my car, my HHR, died in Morristown in the middle of an intersection that was 3 lanes in both directions. I was able to gun it.
You're okay. Now, what's the word on the car?
Well, we haven't heard anything yet. That was Friday afternoon when we got the car to Uncle Matt's car repair place, and they're closed on Saturday. So we don't know if it's the
It'll be a couple days.
Or the clutch. So we don't know. We'll find out. If it's the clutch, we'll probably get it fixed. If it's the engine, we probably won't. So, I mean, the car is a 2011, and I've had it since December.
Doesn't owe you anything.
Yeah, and we looked it up. We looked it up online at 2 different places, and it's either worth $1,800 or $2,000. The 2 places. That's if it's in good running order. So it's not really worth very much. So I don't know if we're going to put any money into it, but it was a little exciting. So now I'm driving my truck pretty much all the time until we figure out what's next. And I don't know
what you guys are going to do.
I don't know if I'm going to try to buy a new car. I don't know. We haven't figured it all out, but it's a bit of a mess.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of factors, and the new ones are not cheap, and nothing out there looks cool anymore. They all look the same. And
that's right. Why are all the cars out there boring? Why is that?
I know.
Very upset.
And the other is, do you get that little Ram ProMaster thing you wanted, or do you get another pickup truck, but a pickup truck with 4 seats in it? So if you guys are going out with friends, you can. I mean, there's so many variables. You know how it is.
I might have to talk to you about some suggestions, but that's what's happening. But if you could help get us some wood chips, that would be great.
Yeah, in the meantime, we'll do that. And I definitely started pruning recently because we had some pretty bad winds. Nothing serious, but, normal maintenance. So I don't know what else the listener should be doing other than, just normal maintenance. But it sounds like we can all pretty much get back out into the garden and get everything going for the season.
One of the fun things that you can do if you're pruning your fruit trees, or if you're pruning your forsythia, or probably even your weigelia, is that you can take the branches and bring them inside and stick them in a vase of warm water, and they'll bloom for you inside very soon. So that's a fun thing to do.
There you go. That's another nice thing.
Ordinarily, you recommend pruning after these things bloom, but sometimes it's good to see the structure of the branches, and you can get in there and do a little bit of pruning now and take out some of the branches, but then it's not wasting the flowers. I wouldn't shear them now, wouldn't shear them ever, but definitely wouldn't shear them now. But if you wanted to go in and take out a couple of key branches and then use the prunings to bloom inside, that can be lovely. I know somebody that years ago did her daughter's wedding with all the prunings from cherry trees. She put them in a refrigerator and kept them until the wedding, and then brought them out in time for them to open up, and just laid cherry blossoms across the middle of the table, and cherry blossom branches. And it was absolutely beautiful. So, you can get creative with these things. You don't want to waste the flowers
Absolutely, I'm sure.
if you have an opportunity to use them or enjoy them. So that's something.
Absolutely.
So there's plenty to
Oh,
do.
that's
I
good.
think one of the things I want to do that I've never done before is I ordered some great cosmos seed. And I want to just cover, there's one bed out in front close to the fence. And I just want to throw down a ton of cosmos seed and then put wood chips on top. And then, because they can be direct seeded. And I'm hoping that they will give us nice, airy, bright, happy flowers all summer. So that's something that I want to start soon because I want to just get the seed out there and then mulch on top of it. So that's something that you might want to do. You could do the same thing with Cleome seed and just throw it out there and then mulch on top of it and see what it does. So those are other kind of fun things you could do.
It's time to get the
and
greenhouse
this
cleaned out too.
You have to cut your asparagus back.
Yes, well, we'll be cultivating ours in. We are taking a bunch of it out, but we have a bunch left that's good. So we're going to cultivate. I think I've sent you a video before. We're going to cultivate what's good and get that all prepped and get some fertilizer on there. And same thing, the greenhouses. Now's the time to get your greenhouse fired up if you're doing your vegetable plants. I don't know about North Jersey, but I know a lot of guys from about Mercer County down, the greenhouses are on and the benches are full. There's, thousands and thousands of seeds and thousands of, different varieties of stuff that's already in pots and ready to go and starting to germinate and get ready for another season. So I don't know how many of your listeners have full-blown greenhouses, but I would imagine if you wanted to start some vegetable plants in your windowsill, you could now, right?
Well, we have quite a few viewers that start their own seeds and in various different ways. Some have greenhouse windows. I don't know of anybody that calls in with a real greenhouse, but a lot of them have artificial lighting set up, specifically for starting seeds. And they do, a lot of people do that. And then a lot of people do just grow on windowsills. And yeah, it's now definitely there's a time to get started on some. We have a few people who are talking about delaying this year until April so that the plants aren't floppy, before they put them out because they get started a little too early. So we have some experimentation going on and we're going to compare notes. So that'll be fun, but definitely, time to get started. That's one thing I do need to go purchase is some soil for starting seeds because I am out. So I use compost for my tomato plants in containers that I've already started that Tommy, your father, is going to move the 3 large planters out in the sun today. They've been out and then we brought them in when the weather was going to get cold. But I'm shooting for tomatoes for Memorial Day. So that should be fun.
Okay.
All right,
yeah,
honey.
That should be good. I actually want later tomatoes, so I think I'm going to do what some of the viewers and listeners are going to do. I'm going to wait on a couple things because I'd like to have tomatoes as late as possible into the fall.
Well, one of the things, the plant that I'm growing to be in these containers is the BHN 589. It's a determinate variety, and it was a variety that a lot of people said was really good. And it's determinate, so it's not going to grow all summer. And so what we're going to do, what I'm going to do is grow these early because it was recommended that this particular variety does really well in hoop houses. So I figure, okay, it'll do well in a greenhouse. And then I'm going to start the rest of the seed like after all my other tomatoes are in, and then I can do a second crop later and have them come in the fall. So that's my plan. So it's sort of a mix of starting early and starting late. So we'll see what happens, but it should be fun.
We'll have to keep in touch on our tomato. We'll keep in touch on our tomato plants through the season. Then.
Well, I'm growing a bunch of weird ones. So, when I have them ready, you'll come by and I'll give you a couple of oddballs to throw in with your mix for yourself.
That sounds like a plan. I think I'm going to do some heirlooms, but otherwise I'm just going to keep it traditional with plums and regular beefsteak tomatoes.
All right, honey, I need to get back to the rest of the show. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and take care of that bronchitis and let us know about the wood chips. Okay.
Absolutely. I'll be in touch, and congrats again on the new show, still going strong.
All right. Thanks, honey. Have a great day.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was a nice surprise. All right, let's go back to my, these were the plants from the farm at Green Village. This was the little variegated string of pearls. They had some carnivorous plants, and the one on the right is a pitcher plant, and we've had other carnivorous plants, but we haven't shown this one lately. This is more traditional, and I think this one might even be native. But they both eat bugs, and they need pretty high humidity to stay alive. And the little pot of horrors, I thought that was kind of a clever for this Venus flytrap. I thought it was kind of a clever marketing scheme. I suppose it is similar to what's the movie, the show, the Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah, so I think it's a play on that, which is kind of cute. They had not a huge selection of carnivorous plants, but some. And they're always fun to look at. All right, this is a variegated monstera, and it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. The price on these things is, you may need to take a second mortgage, but they are beautiful. And what are we going to call these? They're Christmas cactuses. They're blooming for Easter, so people call them Easter cactuses. There's some people call them Thanksgiving cactuses. There are different varieties that have tendency to bloom at different times, but the truth is that they are triggered by light and temperature, mostly temperature. And so you can take them and any of them, and if exposed to the right light and temperature, you can force them into bloom. So are these really a different variety that blooms at Easter, or did the growers expose them to cold night temperatures and force them into bloom at this time of year? I don't know. Truth is, they're beautiful, and they're happy, and they're easy, and you can force them into bloom by keeping them cold at night. And that was one of our callers. From was it Sharon from Winfield? Sharon, was that who it was? That was what I wanted to talk to her about. But they had several different varieties of this. They were all beautiful, and they're blooming now. Their selection of interesting begonias. You can use them as a house plant. You can also use them as ornamentals. I almost bought one of these. I have decided that miniature roses should be grown in my greenhouse, not outside. And the reason, they do fine outside, but the problem outside is that they're so small that other things grow around them and kind of hide them and compete with them. And then they don't, they get lost in the shade. And but in the greenhouse, they seem to do really well, and they will bloom for me often in the winter as well. So so I was tempted, but again, I was just buying a big, very expensive tree, so I was very hesitant to spend any more money. I should have bought this one. This is some kind of euphorbia, and the color is so beautiful. Now, it's a euphorbia, a very large group of plants, but the crown of thorns is a euphorbia. And if you look, the flower looks very similar. So is the poinsettia is a euphorbia. I've never seen this particular euphorbia before. And if I was going to buy any of all the pictures, when I went back and looked at all the pictures of all the things I was tempted about, this is the one I felt like I probably should have purchased. These are calatheas. Again, there's a lot of different kinds of calatheas. I have at least 3 already. I don't have either of these. They're both beautiful, but their selection of houseplants was pretty good. And they had a pretty good selection of ferns. And that is a weird begonia on the right. Very just fun, a good houseplant. I don't know that I'd plant that one outside, but they just had some really interesting, fun things to look at. And maybe next time I go up there, I won't have just had my car die in the middle of the road and will be in a better frame of mind to make purchases. Cyclamen, love them. Again, an excellent choice. They're a good the red ones are a good substitute for holiday gifts, both Christmas and Valentine's Day. They have heart-shaped leaves, so great for Valentine's Day. And the flowers last a really, really long time. Very tricky to get them to bloom a second time. But all right, these are weird. These were bonsai. They're kind of fig trees. They're related to figs, and they have been bonsai'd, and just so weird, really cool. Again, on the pricey side, but really fun to look at. Okay, so can I give the phone number again? No? We're done with these pictures. It's 11 o'clock? We're really done? How did it get to be 11 o'clock? We're overtime.
Yeah.
Okay, just go back to me. All right, I had these things that I want to show you. So I'll show you next week. All right. It's a different kind of plant hangers. So I thought they were kind of fun. And wow. Okay. We only had TJ. We talked to him for a while. And this little dog is trying to get in the picture again. So there. So we'll say goodbye. So I guess I have a lot to do. So I guess I'll just get to work, and I'll be here next week, same time, same place. Until then, have a good one.